Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here and welcome back. Today we're starting a journey exploring a number of the Psikyo titles from the 3 Psikyo collection physicals for Nintendo Switch and PS4, which came out in 2019. These games were some of the first titles I covered when I started Shmuptopia. At that time I was extraordinarily new to the genre, and the videos were more or less 40-minute Let's Plays. As you can imagine, these were not backed by any prior awareness of the Psikyo titles, and I likely didn't provide any sort of useful information since I was very inexperienced. It was simply an opportunity to share my newfound passion and enthusiasm by sampling the different ships or characters and my thoughts in general. I wanted to revisit these games because from what I can tell, they receive very little attention compared to other titles. Yet every time I boot one up for a session, I am reminded of how fantastic and fun they are. The Psikyo games provide adventures filled with excellent visuals, crunchy sound effects, great music, and engaging gameplay, all experienced through a comfortable formula that has you feeling right at home in the action. I have a couple of things to add before we get started. The first is that we won't be looking at every single game across the 3 physicals, but instead mainly the ones I'm most drawn to. The second is that these are not intended to be reviews. I'm sharing a bit about how they are designed, highlighting a few things I enjoy, and bringing the Psikyo titles to your awareness if you've never looked into them. I'm not touching on lag and overall port quality, what the best versions are, how scoring works, etc. With that out of the way, let's jump into the first of the Psikyo games on my list, Gunbird. To this day, Gunbird remains one of my favorite Psikyo titles. Originally released in 1994 in Japanese arcades, Gunbird has been re-released numerous times on platforms such as Sega Saturn, PlayStation, Switch and PS4 as I mentioned earlier, Steam and Xbox One. The story revolves around manga-style characters, the protagonists of which are attempting to collect lost fragments of a magical mirror that can be used to grant a wish. The run plays out over 7 stages, the first 3 of which are randomly selected from a pool of 4 possible levels. The game includes a second loop in which enemies are more aggressive with faster moving bullets and denser patterns. The stages are short and the first loop can be cleared in about 13 minutes. Throughout the run, we visit areas including a jungle, a fortress, a small village train station, an oceanside location, and ancient temples. It's always such a rush to make it deeper and deeper into the run because the intensity ramps up quite a bit, but because the first loop is so short, you know you just need to push a little further to reach the final boss and see what happens. Speaking of bosses, I've always loved their designs and phases. You'll hear me repeat this in each of the Psikyo games I cover because they're all brimming with creativity and always get my imagination soaring. We've got loads of massive machines to go up against, and seeing how and what they transform into is always super cool. Each character has a normal shot, a charge shot, bombs, and extra projectiles that begin firing alongside your normal shot once you start grabbing power-ups. This variety makes for a great experience and learning curve for each character. For instance, I first cleared Gunbird with Yuan Nang, who has a powerful melee strike as her charge shot and ghostly blue swords that fire on either side of her normal attack. In contrast, Tetsu's normal shot covers a greater width than Yuan Nang's, and he has missiles that fire straight ahead from very close to his sides. When releasing a charge shot, the missiles produce more of a trailing effect. Ash, on the other hand, has a large energy attack when releasing a charge shot, narrow firing green beams, and blue energy rings. What's interesting to observe is that Yuan Nang's melee attack eliminates enemy projectiles it comes in contact with, whereas Ash's charge shot does not. This is part of what I mean when I say each character has an interesting learning curve. My experience with Yuan Nang often had me considering and balancing when to fire continually or stop firing so that I could charge my attack, and then gauging whether I wanted to release right away to damage a large enemy or hold off and release it to clear bullets since she has that ability. The longer you go without firing and attacking, the more polluted the screen becomes. This kind of compounding pressure is a complete thrill and a significant part of what I love about games that include charge shots that can be used offensively or defensively. The stages and boss fights often feel like there's a fair bit to keep track of and manage efficiently, and when you do, it's very satisfying. One trend I've noticed across these Psikyo titles is that the biggest reason for taking hits is silly stuff that dings you. Generally speaking, I don't feel these games are overly difficult, yet they do present a strange hurdle. You need to adjust to the game to a certain degree before you really see and feel the momentum. Because of this, it's easy to feel like you're not progressing much at all. You may feel like the game is harder than it actually is. But in the background, you're developing a foundation of experience that will translate to pushing through before you know it. The Psikyo titles are very much like this all across the board. While I've experienced this in other games, it's always been a very subtle or nearly non-existent amount compared to how full force and deceptive it is with Psikyo titles. When things start clicking, you start cracking into the later stages and you know you're close, but it's just a matter of not fumbling those one or two little things along the way. On that note, part of the challenge is the randomized first few stages, because you may have mastered one boss when it's the first or second selected stage you visit, but if it's the third chosen on a different run, you might not have nearly as much experience dealing with the additional aggression and overall behavior. Despite Gunbird's challenges, you can sometimes surprise yourself even if you've messed up a fair bit. This is because resources and each character's toolbox go a long way and can sometimes be enough to punch through the last bit of a boss battle or a hectic part of a stage. To wrap this up, Gunbird is such a cool experience. In games with numerous characters to choose from, I normally don't feel drawn to going for clears with each one, but that's part of the magic here. Gunbird's short duration and exciting gameplay make it perfect for always jumping in with a new objective, whether that's 1 month from now or 2 years down the road. Next up, we'll look at Strikers 1945, but that won't be out right away as I'm finishing up some other projects. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what you think in the comments. What Psikyo games have you played or cleared? Which ones are next on your list, or are these games completely new to you? Have a stellar one, and we'll see you next time. Take care.